Welcome back to another episode of Actually, You Can. I'm Myth, your host, and today I'm super stoked to have an extraordinary guest who will show us how we can break free from old patterns and be, do, and have anything we want. Derick Johnson is a US Army veteran, life coach, and fitness trainer. He used the challenges of his childhood to develop discipline and drive and to build the structures that have seen him successfully help over 500 clients and 50 companies go from just surviving to thriving. If you're sick of tired of being, sick and tired, then you're going to want to hang around. In this episode, we talk about how you can break free from any behavior patterns that are holding you back from stepping into your fullest self-expression. We talk specifically about how you can create a morning routine that sets your day up for success, how you can be more disciplined, and how you can do the hard things and overcome your challenges. So get ready to take control of your mind and body so you can stop simply surviving and start thriving. Because actually, you can. Hi, Derick, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
And for those listening, what time is it where you are at the moment?
Currently it is 3:11 a.m., 3:11 in the morning. I'm down here in Panama City, Panama. I think you're 15 hours ahead of me. So I saw your availability. I picked it. I usually get up at 4. So I was like, what's an extra 90 minutes early? So let's do it.
And I feel like I needed to call it out because I feel like that shares a little bit of insight into who you are. But before we dive into the meat of today's show, which is all about breaking free from previous behavior patterns that could no longer be serving us, I would love for you to share with the audience, who is Derick? What do they need to know about you?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Derick Johnson. I grew up as a child in Germany. My mother's German, and she was a kindergarten teacher for 45 plus years. And my father is African-American, and he was in the US Army for 20 plus years. So we were stationed there. And then in elementary school, we moved from Germany to the United States. So then we lived throughout Florida. And both parents were very driven, successful in what they do with their main careers along with other careers. So waking up at 4 or 5 was just normal in our house. Father was military. As you all know, military wakes up early. They exercise first. And then my mother would do the same thing in the living room. So she would be doing Tai Bo in the living room, Billy Blanks tapes, Body by Jake, pool workouts, all those old cassette tapes and DVDs. She'd be doing all the workout videos. So that was just a natural thing. So number one, seeing the discipline of both parents waking up 5 to 6 days a week at 4 or 5 a.m., exercising, eating healthy, taking care of themselves. It was just a natural thing because as kids and teens, we do what we see. We don't really do what we say. So I did what I saw and it was just normal. So with that being said, both parents were successful. Living in Florida, we had a big house with the screened-in pool. Our house was like the party house or the house for the cookouts or the get-togethers. People would have their graduation parties, birthday parties, everything at our house. All of that seemed great. So beautiful home, nice family, et cetera, et cetera. Parents were well-known. So everything seemed great from the outside. But being the youngest, I never once complained about anything because I always saw and knew stories of people that went through things worse. But essentially, both parents didn't get the help that they needed growing up or from past traumas. So there was a lot of alcohol consumption. So once the family, friends, and neighbors left, the door was closed. And that's where the screaming, yelling, breaking glass, physical, mental, quote unquote, abuse would happen throughout childhood and teenage years. But it was more so like a release. It wasn't necessarily that I was the problem, quote unquote. Yes, I was a teen or kid that snuck out sometimes and did the typical stupid stuff, but it didn't resort to somebody getting that extreme and have that much rage. But I could see it in their eyes that they were just looking through their son, not at their son. So it was more so a release from their own traumas. And I feel like my gift in my childhood was to stay calm in the moments where a lot of kids or people would panic. And I feel like that kind of paved the way of being good at sports, being good in the military, and doing what I do. Just witnessing that from the age of 11 to 17, it definitely prepared me for life. So like when a lot of friends or classmates would have social anxiety or scared to give a presentation, I'd be like, "Hey, this is easy because I gotta deal with this BS at home." So, anything outside of my home house seemed easy to me because it was safe. So, I didn't mind doing anything else because I was like, anything I could do to be outside, it looked beautiful, the house, but behind closed doors, there was a lot of stuff happening. But again, I was just that kid that never told anybody anything because parents were well known. I didn't wanna ruin a reputation. So, I was just that quiet kid who witnessed a lot with family and some other things, but I never wanted to complain, or in America, we would say, "Don't be little B." So, I don't wanna be a little B that just complain about stuff. It's like, suck it up and drive on, keep going. So, basically, what I was lacking at home, I would give my friends and classmates and just strangers. And what I mean by that is the phrase "I love you" was not said in our household. So I would show a lot of love to other people and support them and just try to make other people's day, motivate them, push them, or make them smile because I enjoy doing all positive stuff outside the house because at night it was the opposite. But yeah, but on a positive note, they taught me the discipline. And then on the flip side, they taught me what not to do in regards to relationships and releasing or better communication. But as everyone knows, everything paves us to be the person, the man and woman that we are. So if we look at it in a different perspective, it's hard when you're in it. But if you can connect the dots backwards, you're like, all right, they did help me with this. That happened because this happened in their childhood. Okay, it is what it is. Let's just keep going, work on ourselves, and show better for others and not continue the cycle.
And knowing what you know now, what would you have told teenage Derek at that time, going through all this sort of stuff? What advice would you give him?
I would definitely tell them that keep staying calm and staying focused because this is temporary. Keep staying calm and staying focused because this is temporary. And the reason I was even thinking that back then, but I was, I would say, obsessed with watching movies, reading books or autobiographies of people that went through things way worse. So I wouldn't pretend that my situation wasn't real, but I would just perspective hop and I'd say, we have a home, we have air conditioning, I have both parents. I know people that grew up in foster homes and never even knew their real family. So I would look at all these different scenarios and say, blessing, 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 grateful, grateful, grateful. Yes, this sucks, but there's 15 other things that are positive. So I think the bad, I mean, the good outweighs the bad. So I would look at it in that and basically just to keep pushing because it's all temporary.
And you mentioned that it's all temporary and to keep pushing. Was there something that you were pushing towards?
Yeah, for sure. So it was in regards to self mastery. So when I was 11 or 12 years old, I was in my dad's car and he was listening to a lot of Tony Robbins tapes. So I'm 33, so I grew up in the age of cassette tapes and CD players. So
You and
we
I
had that
both.
shift
Good
before.
times.
Yeah, we had that shift before Wi-Fi, DVD players, all that. So yeah, so I remember sitting in the back seat of the car and I had to grow up quick, but I related to what Tony Robbins was saying, Les Brown, other speakers. And so I would listen to these things and it stood out. So one of the quotes that stood out at the time is, if my mother gave me the love that I wanted, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I was 11 or 12 years old hearing this, and I'm like, that makes sense. And I would listen to his story of his mother putting a bar of soap in his mouth. And like, I don't know if people know the backstory of like the relationship. So I related a lot to that. And that's why it opened my eyes because I didn't really hear those specific stories. It was either way more extreme or his story was very parallel to it. So hearing that really changed your perspective. And that is something that always helped is the perspective hop. Like I would never, even during the screaming or yelling, I would just like be able to not escape or shut down, but I would be able to zoom out and look at myself in that scenario and say, what can I get from this? And I would like play this game. And I don't know where that came from as a kid, but it just always worked. So I would tap out and say, all right, don't give them the reaction that you want. And then I would like just study how the mind works and stress and trauma. It was weird. I was doing like all kind of psychology work on myself, but it was the only thing that kept me sane because I was like, I don't want to drink, I don't want to do drugs, and I don't want to resort to violence. So I need to learn how to control this and just be calmer.
Wow, and that's such incredible insight to have at such a young age too. It sounds like you're doing all the Tony Robbins techniques and the Les Brown techniques that you learn later on in life, but you're doing them sort of unconsciously around that teenage years. That's really incredible. And so from that, what made you choose to join the military? Is that a link to that sort of same path or was that a different choice?
Yeah, it is all linked to the same path. So seeing I always loved seeing the discipline and the structure of the military, and then also with my dad going throughout the ranks and all that, traveling the world. I knew that it was going to be temporary, as in I didn't want to do 20 plus and retire from the military. I wanted to utilize it, have it on the resume. So I was always thinking ahead of time. So I was like, I'm going to do X amount of years. At that time, I didn't know how many years, but I also loved and thrived in pushing my body and my mind past its limits. So past the pain thresholds, or ran longer than I thought, lifted weights longer than I thought, went more days without sleeping. I mean, even something as simple as this, like
Yeah.
in my head, I'll just play this competitive game. Who's going to get up at this time to do a podcast and not complain? So I don't know. I've just always been that way. Not to
Okay.
act better than anyone, but I always love to push myself. And I feel like it gives people life, that competitive edge. But yes, that's what inspired me, is seeing my dad in the military. That's one. Number two is to have that mental and physical test. And also at the time, I had a fear of heights. So I wanted to get over that. And I was like, what better way than to climb this wall in the military, or be in a helicopter with my legs dangling out, or rappel from a helicopter from a rope, or jump out with a parachute. Like, I thought of all these things and I was like, the only way to face it, and going back to American way, don't be a little bee, like face your fears. So growing up, seeing all that, I was like, all right, that's the only way that I'm going to grow. And I got addicted to facing fears, not so much as an adrenaline junkie, but more so I need to face it a couple times and then you feel alive. Where if somebody has not experienced that, some people will say this is the wrong way of thinking, but I've always motivated people to literally face their fears and not put yourself in a dangerous situation, but it's more so the feeling of aliveness that you feel. So, like an example could be, if somebody has a fear of heights, yes, you don't have to jump out of a plane and go that extreme at first, but get on a roller coaster or rock climb, or just do something. And then after the fact, you're like, all right, one, I didn't die. Two, that was a different feeling. Three, I see the world in a different view. Four, your confidence skyrockets. And there's all these other positive attributes that cannot be replaced or replicated unless you actually face that fear. Because I believe that a society right now, they're trying to dodge everything. And that is why everybody's so stressed and the word anxiety is so common. Like, all these things are real, yes, but it's just thrown in our face so much that everybody's like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. And this is for males and women, where it's like, in my opinion, society's soft. So I feel like if people face their fears more, it would do a major difference in their shift, because they would show up differently in life.
If you had a mic and everyone in the world could hear you speak, what is something that you would say to society?
I would definitely just say that, one, become the man and woman that you'd be proud of and give him or her to the world. Become the man or woman that you would be proud of and give him or her to the world. The reason I would say that is because most people are selfish. They hit snooze. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Oh, I've had a long day, had a long week. Me, 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 me. We all do it to an extent. But if we flip it and say, people depend on me, maybe somebody's kids, maybe somebody's pets, clients, customers, or the stranger online that needs to see that social media post that says, wow, I'm in a dark place. I don't know who you are, found you through a hashtag or something, and getting that message. Somebody needs us. Or even like the little kid down the street that sees you go on walks or runs, they look up to you. They might have never said anything to you, but I always believe that somebody's watching and we should set the example. Because if they see you slacking or drinking more, doing drug, whatever it is, somebody's going to say, oh, you know what? Derek is doing that. Myth is doing that. It's okay if I do it. And that might be the last time that they do one of those things. So flipping it and saying, how can we show up better? Because somebody's watching, and just leading by example.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing. And hearing you speak to that, it reminds me of the concept of self care. I mean, we're often told take care of self to be able to give to the world. And I definitely agree with that. I think there is a point too where you need to get out of your own way and start thinking about the broader impact you have on others. You need to be the best version of yourself and take care of yourself to do that. But the world is not just about you, it's about the impact you
Oh,
can
yeah,
have in the world and how we go through it as a society as well. And I'm
exactly.
interested to hear, during your time in the military, knowing that you sort of went in there looking for challenge and facing your fear, was there a particular moment when you were there that stood out to you as really ticking those boxes? You were like, yep, I've faced my fears. This is serving its purpose.
Yeah, there'd be a few times when it came to facing fear of heights. So I remember on one training, I don't remember how many meters up off the ground it was. It had to be at least 20 or 50 meters. But basically, you have no harness and you're going through this obstacle course where like there's no net on the bottom. If you fall, you're just going to hit the grass and break a leg or arm. So like it is an adrenaline rush. And I mean, you're less likely to die. It's not that high, but you'll break a bone if you fall. But long story short, you would climb these pillars, these wood pillars and planks, and you'd walk across these planks, and then you jump from this thing. So basically, if somebody can envision Ninja Warrior, but in a military way, and then there's no harness or anything. So that would be step one, doing that the first time without any harness or without any thoughts, but also there's 50 other people coming behind you that they got to do this course too. So if you stop, everybody's waiting on you and you're embarrassed. So they're yelling, the pressure's on. The people on the ground are yelling, the people ahead of you are yelling to come on. So all that pressure, facing that kind of pressure multiple times makes you show up as a different person. And those shifts everybody needs to an extent in whatever that is, but having that pressure, because most people they'll crack or break under pressure. But I believe that the best leaders, best parents, best coaches, whoever deals with people, they know how to be calm under pressure. Yes, they might have fear. Yes, they might be scared, but they're still going to do that thing no matter how they feel. And then after the fact, people start to look up to them, or they're just like, hey, I trust being around him or her because I know that they're hyper aware of what's going on. So I would definitely say those first couple times facing fear of heights without any safety gear and harness, because a lot of the other training scenarios, yes, you're in a plane, yes, you're higher in a helicopter, but you do have a lot of safety clips and all that. So even though the height is higher, you still have extra safety. So everybody has a different psychological shift in regards to, all right, I do have the safety kit, and the other's like, well, we don't here. So one person might be more scared of this or that. But yes, facing that multiple times, but also enjoying the pressure of dehydration, lack of sleep, people yelling, people screaming. You go through this obstacle course, physical test. And then on top of that, what people don't talk about is you also have to take written tests while you're dehydrated, sleep deprived, hungry, et cetera, et cetera. And then you really have to tap into another version where it's not just like normal school, college, or all those things where you had X amount of hours of sleep, you showed up with the perfect coffee, and it's just like, all right, you haven't slept in 3 days, you're hungry, you're starving, you're pissed off. Like, can you pass this test? And if you do, you're like, wow, this is what I'm capable of. So it's an interesting shift, but you truly see what the human body and the human mind is capable of. I've always loved those things. And going back to learning people's stories, I've always been attracted to just people's grit and tenacity, like push through anything. Where once you peel back the layers and you learn what they've been through, you're like, damn, she's a badass or he's a badass or whatever they endured.
You're a total badass. And I'm really interested to hear. I believe there's emotions like fear and anger that it's not like we don't want to feel them. Emotions are there for a reason to spark us into action. I'm interested to hear what was your thought process knowing that you were feeling fear and this is something you had to overcome and you did overcome it. I'd love to hear if you wouldn't mind walking us through what was the process that you did to overcome that fear and complete the obstacle course.
Yeah, for sure. So step one for me was to stop and breathe. So, and this stems back to my childhood where I got good at zooming out, pretending that it was like a movie scene. So like the main character is about to face something and then it goes, and then they're looking at themselves. I would do that since childhood during those traumatic moments. So at the obstacle course or in the plane or whatever, I would breathe for a second and then kind of do that and look at myself and say, okay, what can you control? You need to step over here because your left foot is going to be better balanced than the right one. And I would walk the scenario in my head and then I'd go back into my body and then would just be calmer and basically breathing to view the scenario and to be more present. So not thinking of the what if I fall, what if this, pausing and breathing for a moment, zooming out and saying, what can I control? All right, you got two options, fall down, break something, or get through this and be focused. And just figure out the steps that you're going to do from there. But just pausing and breathing and then realizing that you have way more power within you than you think. So a lot of the inner things that are holding us back all stems from childhood. maybe that obstacle course really isn't scaring that person that much, but their 11-year-old self might be the one that's trying to pop into the current moment saying, this is scary. No, retreat, retreat, where it's like, are you really scared? Or is that your 11-year-old version that's scared, that's trying to take over? So that's why pausing to breathe and really be strategic about it, and then coming back into the body and then going calmly and then realizing what you did, even if you do fall off or whatever happens, you're going to learn from it.
Mm.
But in those moments, being able to harness that energy and just being calm and present. Because nowadays, rarely anyone is present anymore. They're always on their devices, scrolling this and this. Like most people don't have control of their attention at all. These apps,
Mm.
programs, people, and situations have control of their attention. And that's why people are like all over the place. They can't even like sit for a moment. We all have that friend that's just like, you're like, you just want to grab their shoulders, sit down, just put the phone down, just breathe, just take a breather. Let's look outside and follow this bird for 3 minutes and see where it flies to. Just be present for a moment. But yeah, taking a breather, being present, and then going from there to be strategic about what you're going to do. It sounds simple, but if you perspective hop like that and think of one of your favorite movies that does this, where they pop out of themselves and then go back into their self, it's a interesting analogy because it keeps you more in control. You feel calmer because you're almost acting like you're not in that scenario and you're kind of giving them advice. And then you come back into it and then you just show up more confident.
And I'm sure you use these tools with your clients too, but hearing you describe the disassociated state, I use that a lot with my clients. And by disassociating from the current situation, you remove the emotion from it. And to you said, you give yourself that broader, wider perspective, and things become a lot less scary when you're looking at yourself in the situation rather than being immersed in that situation. And the other
Oh,
technique
yeah.
you touched on there was, what advice would you give a friend? We always are full of advice for other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we seem to fall short and not know what to do. But in reality, we do know what to do and we do know how to get through situations, but we just need to give ourselves the time and space to do that. And I'm interested to hear as well, there's obviously a lot of qualities from your childhood, like the discipline that would be really useful in the military environment. Was there any sort of behaviors that you learned from childhood limiting during your time there?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say in middle school, getting bullied in sports. So my ethnicity, my father's African American, my mother's German. So I'm mixed. Americans, we would say, we're light skinned, but in a sports setting around a lot of testosterone in a male dominated sport, the way you look like the pretty boy. So the pretty boy, no matter if they're the white guy that looks like Justin Bieber or the Asian guy that looks like he's a K-pop artist, like whatever the look is, the pretty boy in America in sports, in school, we have to prove ourselves. So that was my setting. And it was more so like for me, it was the African Americans, my black teammates and everything, or the bullies. They were the ones that were like, all right, well, he looks that way. He's soft. He's spoiled. He lives in a nice neighborhood. He's not from the hood or whatever. So during that time, I was in martial arts, and martial arts was also my cheat code of being calmer. But
Mhm.
I would see people get bullied, but then it was my turn to get bullied. So in my head, I thought, well, I know what to do to protect myself. I'm not scared of this guy, even though he's like twice my size, or maybe has missed a couple grades, and that's why he's still here. But either way, is that I was like, all right, I have two options. Let him beat me up and majorly hurt me because this guy's huge and let them all jump on me, or bust somebody in the nose just enough for everyone to see. And then they're like, okay, we cannot mess with Derek. He's not scared of us anymore. Because on the schoolyard, the bully is usually the most insecure person.
Mm.
So same thing with internet trolls. Anybody that bullies anybody, they're just projecting, projecting, projecting. So I knew that at the time, and I said, okay, well, I don't want to resort to violence, but I have to in this setting, or this is going to be a repetitive thing. Like I'm not showing up to this sport or this school to get bullied all the time because I have madness at home. It's not happening at school. And that's why I really wasn't scared of the bully. I was more so scared that I was going to go in blackout mode and just not stop,
Mm.
like releasing because there's so much at home. And that was like a fear in my head. I was like, I feel like they're going to pull me off and I'm just going to go in blackout mode. But then because of martial arts, I was able to stay calm. So having to stand up for myself and then make somebody bleed on the basketball court, outdoor court or inside, and then it happens for like 30 seconds and we stop. And then the bully no longer messes with you. And everybody's like, okay, wow, he stood up. And then there's like that mutual respect. So in America, that's very common. So you have to prove yourself. especially with the way you look and in a male dominated sport. So like, oh, you're the pretty boy. So you have to resort to violence at that time. So, and also at that time, it was different. After that fight, we didn't shake hands or become friends. We just had mutual respect. He's like, okay, he's not scared. Nobody's ever made me taste my own blood per se, which is what the bully thought. And we're like, all right, at least we know who not to mess with. And then we never talked about it again. And then my friends were like, wow, you stood up to the bully. And to me, it wasn't to get attention. It was more so, I'm not showing up to school. I hate being at home, even though the house is beautiful. I hate the energy at night. I'm not coming to school to hate this, because then I'm just going to hate everything and I'm going to hate life. So I was like, I'm not allowing someone to have control over me. And that was a mentality I had. So I would definitely say standing up for myself, because I was that quiet kid. I wasn't scared or shy. I was just half asleep because I wouldn't sleep at home because of the mad nights. And on top of that is I enjoyed not being at home. I enjoyed being in the classroom and just people watching. I was just that observer. And I truly believe that people who grow up in a wild household and upbringing, we can read a room really well because we're used to expecting somebody to hit you or throw something at you or yell. So in public, we're like scanning. So if you're in an airplane and there's somebody drunk and belligerent, everybody starts looking around on the plane to see who's going to strap this guy in the seat. Okay, she is focused and calm. Yeah, she's going to help. He's going to help. Oh, yeah, they're going to freeze up and cry. You can just tell by somebody's body language. And then, like, you usually give each other the head nod of the male and female who are going to be in control. And they're usually the calmest and most quiet. And they're just like, yeah, if he has another drink, we're going to have to strap him to the seat. So going back to that setting is I would always read the scenario. And then that is just something that stood out. Standing up to the bully. And then throughout life is I challenge myself and also clients and friends to not give people the reactions that they want or expect, whether that's, oh, all women act that way, or, oh, that's all blacks act that way, or Australians, or whatever somebody's preconceived notion is. They always expect you to act some way. Or that family member that's like, well, she used to shut down a lot, so I know what to say to trigger her because she's going to be very emotional. And the day that you're not emotional, they're like, what's happening? Like, you broke your pattern and you just don't give them control and you're kind of like blank. So that's something I always focus on, is to not give them the reaction that they wanted. But if need be, if you have to stand up for yourself, definitely stand up for yourself. And again, violence is the last resort. But in that school setting, I had to, or it would have been continuous, because I wasn't going to let bullying happen at school because it was happening at home. And I was like, I'm sick of this.
And it's really interesting to hear you talk about all this, because there's a lot of these really positive skill sets that seem like they stemmed out of your desire to find safety and to find security. And a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but I often hear through my clients that the patterns of behavior that they've developed to create that safety and certainty are normally pretty unresourceful, whether it's they emotional eat or they self-sabotage. It seems like your skill set went the other way. And so I'm interested to hear, during your time in the military, did you develop any other skill set on top of the ones you already brought in with the discipline and sort of self-mastery? Were there any others that you gained through your time there to add to the repertoire?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Great question. So I would say reading people's personalities better and dealing with clashing personalities. So an example could be, in the US Army, we have each other's back, meaning if we get deployed, if I don't like you and you don't like me, we know that if I get shot in the leg, you're going to help me and I'm going to help you. So whatever argument we had about politics, religion, whatever whatever clash somebody had, when it comes down to the mission, we have each other's backs. And that's the good camaraderie of the military, is it's just mutual respect, where you don't necessarily have to like the person. And in the civilian world or in real life, that lacks, because it's more so, oh, we don't think the same, we're against each other. And it's like, you're giving the media and whoever wants us to all be against each other, you're giving them what they want. But when we can come together, it is a powerful thing. So going back to your question, is being able to read people's personalities to be a better leader. So an example could be, if somebody is a hyper introvert, or you can tell they're going through something, or you can tell that they do need that aggressiveness because that's how they resonate with it. So learning how to approach each individual differently. And those are always the best leaders, because they're playing chess with their words, knowing how to speak to someone. So on the flip side, the military way, or like the German way, or the way my parents were, it was just like, drill sergeant mode. That's the only way of communication. There was no in between. It was like, you're soft or you're not going to be anything, or whatever it was. It's like my way or the highway. Where yes, that can help sometimes, but for most scenarios, it's not needed. And then also, what I notice is looking at examples in the military of leadership styles that I wanted to be like and the ones I did not want to be like. So the ones I did not want to be like is embarrassing that individual, that male or female soldier in front of everyone. Because you don't know what that's going to happen when they're at home. Like that could be their last day. You don't know what they're going through. Their grandma could have just died and you just embarrass them in front of everybody when they're like, F it. Like,
Mm.
I'm tired of all of this stuff. So like people don't think about those things. So in that setting, if you can sense that something is wrong, pulling them to a side, or if you feel like you're going to explode on these people, pause and then ask that team questions. What is something you think we can do better? And what is something that I didn't give you guys that made this mission not as good as it should have been? And just like flipping it, even though you want to say, what the hell are you guys doing? Like you want to snap. But in general, it's usually when you just ask people questions and allow them to elaborate how we can make this better, you realize you use less energy, you use less time, and you're like, wow, we found a solution quicker. Because that anger, that thing will override and take most of your energy. And you go home from work, you won't believe what happened 3 hours ago, and blah, 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 blah. And they're talking about that situation, and that situation probably lasted 1 minute, but they held it for 8 hours that day. But if they simply had an uncomfortable conversation for 5 minutes, at the end, both people are calm and you go about your day and you don't even think about the conversation anymore. So it's just reading people's personalities and being a better communicator and a better listener. The best leaders, they know how to listen. They can read a room and they can see what approach needs to be brought right up front. Do they need the aggressiveness? Do we need to crack the whip? That's needed as well sometimes. Or do we just need to come in here and give them compassion rather than strictly compression?
And it sounds like all of these skill sets have tied up really nicely into what you do for your work today. Are you able to share with the audience what that is that you do for work now?
Yes, for sure. So my tagline is essentially I help people identify old patterns, break those so then they can begin to thrive and not just survive. So an example is the CEO who's successful financially, but then they binge drink or they binge eat or they do the lines on the weekend to cope with stuff. Like whatever it is, to each their own. But usually people, they dominate one or two areas of their life and they try to slide the other part, or they don't show it to the public, the other parts that they want to work on. So we focus on that part and then they can feel freer and way more in control. So some clients are strictly fitness, some are strictly life. But my favorite that I like to do, I do a combination because I truly believe the mind and body have that connection. So if she or he is hydrating, eating healthier, not resorting to that anger at work, like really working on those things, they use way less energy and they feel freer and they have that power. And you just sense that calmness in them. And people, they just look at them, they're like, I don't know what you've been doing, but you're like way more calmer lately. And that is my favorite thing, is seeing the positive ripple effect. So yeah, so we do mindset coaching and fitness coaching, but I do the combination of it. And what inspired me to get into life coaching is that I felt like I was letting clients down in college and in the military, where I would see clients months or years later and they lost the results. At first I was like, you lazy mother. But then I was like, all right, let me not, that's my past self speaking. Then I was like, all right, what tools did I not give them to change this? And when I pushed pride and ego out of the way and learned and got those certifications and schooling and experience, nowadays people less likely go backwards. Even after we work together, I'll see people online or in person that we worked together years ago and they're still going up. Like they didn't go back to the binge drinking, the eating, the bad relationship. They didn't turn back into the yes person and the people pleasing and like all these common traits that people have. They don't go backwards because we penetrated this and we changed our belief system. So yes, it was a combination of the fitness coaching and life coaching where it goes hand in hand. So we're not just that guy with abs, but that is financially broke, or the rich person, but they're overweight, or the person that looks like they got it all together, but on the weekends they do copious amounts of drugs. We focus on the things that they don't want to talk about to the public, and then we make them much better.
And at what state do these people come to you? And what I mean by that is they've obviously reached out for you for a reason. Is it because they're like, my life is just out of control? Or do they go, oh, I need to join the gym, do a fitness program. And then from there, you find out that their life's a shit show. What point do they come to you?
It's more so they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
So like an example could be somebody that had a trainer and nothing against trainers at gyms, teach their own, but it's very common in the States to have I call him Kyle with the clipboard. So Kyle with the clipboard at most gyms, he has a clipboard, he's texting, he doesn't give a damn about his clients. He has them standing on a ball, just doing random stuff. And like they make minimal results and they work with this trainer for like 2 years and they look the same for 2 years straight. That is Kyle with the clipboard. He has all these clients, but they look the same all year long. It's like, what are you even doing with these clients? But the clients, they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So they're like, they keep paying this gym, they keep paying this trainer. But if they zoom out, they're like, has anything changed in your life besides the 2 kilos or the 5 pounds that you went down? Besides that, it's usually no. They just got a minimal results in the gym. So I like to break it down like that, where I say, here is a fast path to your goals. We're not going to say or get rich quick or anything like that, but more so, here's what's possible when you can get out of your own way and break those patterns. So we focus on that. But yes, so one, people reach out when they're sick and tired of doing things that don't work, whether they try themselves, trial and error, work with somebody, or on top of that, when they feel that they hit a ceiling. I'm doing really well in my career, but I feel like something is lacking. Or I'm doing really well in fitness, but I suck at public speaking. I'm doing really well in this and this, but I haven't been on a date in 3 years because I'm still worried about my last merit. Like whatever those things are, those are examples too. And then example three is the overwhelmed person. That's like, I open up social media. This guy says only eat liver. This lady says go vegan. This person says don't do that or you'll die. And this person says you need it to take 2 ice baths a day. And they're like, what the hell do I do? So everything is extreme now. Where like
All of it at
those
the
things
same
do work.
time.
Exactly. Like it's information overload and they're just like, I don't know where to begin. There's all this information, Google, YouTube, all these people contradict themselves. What do I do for my situation? So going back to the question is the person that's sick and tired of being sick and tired and they want results. Person two is like, I hit a ceiling in an area and I want to penetrate that to break through because I feel stuck. And then person three is, I'm overwhelmed with information. What the heck do I do? And then there are some other subcategories, but those are usually the three main reasons. And what I always tell people is, I'm not for everyone. You're not for everyone. But if they resonate with my approach, great. If not, I can guide them to somebody that resonates more with them. So when they identify that, they're like, cool. So I'm never salesy about it. I just tell people straight up front. I'm like, hey, I don't think we're a good fit, or I do think, are you open to learning how to do X, Y, Z? If they're ready, cool. If they're not ready, my job isn't to convince anybody.
100%. And what is your approach? You mentioned that you have, for lack of a better term, a faster way of getting results. What is your method?
So the step one that I always do after first identifying exactly what they want and why, because as you mentioned earlier, it's always deeper than just the fitness. It could be something with their inner child, something from a past relationship, a limiting belief they carried since Uncle Jimmy spoke to them a certain way and that's in their head, like whatever it was. But I first focus on what can we eliminate. That's always step one. My intent is not to change somebody's whole routine or say, hey, take a picture of your pantry and your fridge. Oh yeah, throw away the second shelf and let's do this. That drastic approach does not work with 90% of people. If they're an athlete preparing for an event, yes, that might be needed. But most people are not, they're not training for an athletic event and trying to be a professional in sports. So with that being said, we focus on what they can eliminate. So an example, we start with a list and they ask themselves a question. What could I eliminate, get rid of, or simply replace that'll help me get more results? And I challenge them to look at it in a neutral standpoint. And then I give them examples and I say, maybe after 8 p.m., you're watching Netflix and then you order Uber Eats or you open up the bag of chips, or maybe you're a grazer throughout the day. You keep snacking because you work at home and you're like, didn't realize I had 70 grams of sugar every day because I keep walking to the kitchen because I work at home. They're like on the phone, just like snacking and just being busy, and they're just busy eating. So those are common examples. Other one could be being a yes man or a people pleaser, and then saying yes to too many people and too many things where then people expect it. And they always feel drained and they always have weekly burnout. Like every Wednesday or Thursday, they feel burnt out because they're doing everything for everyone else. So basically we walk through it and then they write down what they want to eliminate. Or it could be something subtle that they're like, you know what, I could replace this thing. let's slowly replace the sodas with flavored water or whatever it is. But we first eliminate things before changing their whole routine or the whole schedule, because that's overwhelming for a lot of people and it doesn't last. Like, it's hard to make a total change. In the States, we say going cold turkey. So if somebody's a smoker, there's a phrase called going cold turkey, like to just give it up right then. Some people can do it, but the majority, that doesn't work for them. So I go with it with this approach. What can we eliminate or get rid of that'll help you get better results? And it usually stems with one, it could be what they consume, nutrition, what they eat or drink. It could be number two, their thoughts, the limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome, negative self-talk, intrusive thoughts. It could be that. Or it could be the other thing where they're like, I keep doing the what if. I'm stressing about the future and I'm stressing about the past. I'm never here. I'm with my friends, but I'm just like this. Like, they can sense their energy in their eyes. Are like, hey, where are you at? Where are you at? And they're like, sorry, I'm stressing about next week. I got this happening, or 2 years ago, this happened. They're like, all right. So that's always step one, is what can we eliminate? And once we hit that, we know exactly what to work on. So like the fitness part that is in the training app, that'll be easy for them. The discipline, the eating for that individual, that'll be easy. But how to really penetrate is if we can get rid of whatever's on their eliminate list or take their power back, and they realize that that thing that they use as a vice doesn't control them. They resorted to it because of this situation. So those are always my favorite situations, is seeing them have that power, saying, I haven't drank in 2 weeks. I haven't touched a cigarette in a while, or I haven't just been scrolling just to waste time to get a dopamine hit and end up on a rabbit hole where I'm like, what the hell happened? An hour went by. I don't know how I got here.
I love what you mentioned in terms of the step one, eliminating and replacing rather than just a complete overhaul. I think when people sign up for a coach, it's really common to be like, yep, I'm ready for change. I need a really big change. Let's overhaul everything. And you're like, woo up. Like, we're in this for the long haul. Like, it took you, 33 years to get to this point. It's going to take more than one sesh to undo all this or to create a change. And
Yes.
so I really love that really supportive approach. And you mentioned a couple of times with the training, and it's one of your strengths is discipline. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on discipline and motivation and how they relate to someone's ability to achieve a goal, and how you would teach something like discipline as well, given that it's something that comes in inherently to you, how you would teach discipline.
Yeah, for sure. So my main thing that I always recommend, I never tell somebody what time to wake up, but I challenge them to wake up at the exact same time, 7 days a week. It doesn't mean that we have to hustle 24/7 like the Instagram motivation memes say, but if we have power of our morning, we will be more proactive. It sounds very basic and simple, but most people have zero control of their morning. They hit snooze, or they wake up, but they don't get out of bed because they scrolled on TikTok, and then they stress, they look at the time, anxiety goes up, then they don't drink water, they drink the coffee, the caffeine doesn't work, and then this, and people call and text, and they're just like, oh my God. So they haven't had some time for themselves. So that's very common. So I first look at it as the morning routine. It's up to them to choose when to wake up. I do recommend waking up earlier, but obviously everybody has different schedules, work times, kids, and all that. But if they can start to train their circadian rhythm, their internal clock, to wake up at the same time and build that process so they start to beat their alarm. So the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people, they don't do any deep work until Wednesday and Thursday. So Fridays, they're already mentally tapped out, ready for the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, enjoy it. You earned it. Some didn't earn it. They just want to escape reality. Come Monday, they're dragging. Oh, it's Monday. I got the case of the Mondays. They're dragging. Tuesdays, they're kind of getting into it. Wednesday and Thursdays are like, all right, I got to get my shit together. And then they're in a zone Wednesday and Thursday, and they're like, oh, tomorrow's Friday. And then the cycle continues. That's what you see with a lot of people. It's just like,
Yeah.
so like they're not productive throughout the whole week. They just get in a zone during 1 or 2 days out of the week. And the rest of the time, they're either complaining or looking forward to the weekend. And so like they wonder why they don't make massive results in their life. But going back to the question of waking up at the same time, the intent of that is to own and harness your morning so you're proactive. So when life does happen or everybody needs you at the same time, you're like, I was already awake. I went to the gym. I walked my dog. I already ate. I did whatever makes me feel strong and empowered in the morning, which I always recommend move the body and do something for the mind. One thing for the body, one thing for the mind. So for me, it's run to the gym, lift weights, come home, eat something healthy, walk my dog. And then I start the day and the day's easy because I'm not reacting. And I've had some me time and I'm just calm and in control. So if somebody goes for a simple walk and then meditates or visualize or prays, to each their own, all three things work. But I always recommend to do those things after we've had some physical activity. So step one, waking up at the same time and also on the weekend. The reason why is so we're not trying to catch back up. So we could all afford to pull an all-nighter. So like an example would be, let's just say somebody wants to wake up at 6 a.m. and then Saturdays they have fun. If they still wake up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, they're going to fall asleep earlier Sunday night and they can still naturally get up at 6 on Monday rather than waking up at 10 a.m. and then Monday trying to get back up at 6 a.m. and then they're just like, oh my God, I'm even more tired. But if they consistently just wake up at the same time, that will help. The next thing in terms of the morning routine would actually be to go towards your night routine. I recommend that people put their devices across the room in the hallway or in the bathroom. As in, many people, we have multiple devices, a tablet, iPad, an old phone that can still be your alarm, maybe you don't use. But if you can have two pieces of electronics that are your alarm, but don't have them next to you. Because many people, they sleep with their with their phone right by the pillow. The alarm goes off, they go, and they fall back asleep and they turn it off in a millisecond and then they wake up and have anxiety or they don't
Yeah.
sleep good at all because all these Wi-Fi rays are by their head all night. So putting the devices across the room, waking up at the same time, now you have to walk out of bed to turn off that annoying alarm. So I also recommend having something that's going to be abrupt rather than the birds chirping alarm. Just have that or some EDM music or something that's just going to hype you up and get up. At the same time, you have to walk to turn off the alarm and then just start your morning routine, whatever that consists of for you. Hydrating, move the body, open the mind and say, what am I doing today? I'm going to be intentional. And then going from there to build their morning routine. That is a huge thing that we do because before anybody does that, they're not going to have that much control of the day. They might be a little bit productive, but they still feel reactionary. They feel reactive to many things because they're like, I wish I got up 30 minutes earlier. I just need some me time. Most people, they just need some me time in the morning. That's all they're missing because they wake up and everybody's calling, texting, emailing, and they're just like, oh my God, I've only been up 20 minutes and everybody needs me. But it's not their fault. It's your fault because you didn't get up early and take care of yourself. But really making that non-negotiable where you're like, I have the power of this. I'm not going to grab my phone and scroll. I'm not going to check email. I'm just going to have some me time, breathe, and then start your day where they're like, wow, I haven't felt this calm in a while. And again, it sounds very simple, but it's all just about creating that new pattern where it becomes their new norm.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word simple, and I think a lot of things are simple, but not often easy. And so if someone's going, that sounds great, but it's really hard. I mean, apart from they might not be your client. If they go, this is really hard, I
Yeah,
just don't
for
want to do
sure.
it. Maybe I'm not the right coach for you. But if someone's like, Derek, that's really hard for me to get up that early or to go to bed without scrolling my phone, what would you say to them?
I would say, hey, I agree it is hard, but how long have you been saying that to yourself? What else do you say is hard? Because normally it's just a repetitive thing. So maybe they hate waking up because since they were 14, they said it's hard to wake up before 7. So they've been telling themselves that all their life, it's hard to get up early. I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. So they see they see the morning as negative because that's how they spoke to themselves. So if they zoom out for a second and look at that, and then if they think about the time, let's just say they're in college, they played sports, they partied, they showed up to class, they did this and this, you have proof that you can get a lot done, sleep less, and still be productive and happier. Like you have proof you've done it before. So there's more signs that you can go back to do that in a more healthy, abundant way. But yes, so I would say catch your words. So I challenge people to catch their words as in what are you calling hard, difficult, bad? What are you using in a negative adjective in a negative context? Because that is creating a blockage for you. And at first you're like, yeah, I don't know. And then we kind of zoom out and say, just go about your day. How many times do you either complain or say something's negative or hard? And then they really look at it and they really start to laugh and they're like, shoot. I do really talk negative a lot, or I put all these limiting beliefs in my head where it's just very common, but they don't notice it because it's been that way a while. We're not saying they're a negative person, but if they step one say, this is hard, I can't do that, they already put a blockage on themselves. And they're basically saying, I don't have control of my own power. I don't have control of my own attention span. So this is overwhelming. And that's all it is that they don't have control of their time and attention. So they're saying that something else does. But with that being said, is I would just test them and say, okay, well, let's just do this. Try this for a week. It is not I didn't create this. It's just like, hey, we're just going to try this. Let's wake up 30 minutes earlier. And instead of grabbing the phone, first grab that glass of water or grab a book or drink that water and then go for a walk and earn being able to scroll or scroll while you're eating breakfast after you've had some mute time. So just like changing the approach, and they're like, okay. And then we look at it in terms of earning what they enjoy to do rather than like using it as an escape and an endorphin hit, which is just like most people are just chasing the next endorphin hit of the day. But it doesn't actually do anything for them because they do it so much that they're numb to it. And that's why we're addicted to all these apps and devices. It's not so much in the regards to, hey, I've had a hardworking day. Let me get some entertainment on these apps. It's more so, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need to scroll. I need to escape right now. I need to scroll for 10 minutes before this next call. So yeah, so I first start with the approach of what are the words that you use and why, and then just giving them a challenge, really looking at their routine and day and saying, all right, let's try this and this. Just go 5 days. Let's see how you feel. And they're like, okay. And then they play it and they're like, okay, all right. I feel a little better. That's the first time I went to the gym. And then we slowly start to go from there. So you're just penetrating. And then next thing you know, they less likely use those words. I'm not a morning person. They're more so like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and then I can earn this and this, where we're slowly breaking that pattern. And then they start to laugh and they're like, I see what you did there. We're breaking this without just changing everything, but they feel better. That's the whole intent, is to give them their power back, where they stop seeing everything immediately as that's not for me, that's overwhelming. They're just retreat. And I'll just ask people like, hey, that's understandable, but how long do you want to be in this position? And how long have you been here? And they're like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? Like, how long have you been in the spot you're in? And we're just being neutral. Like, there's no judgment. They're like, 6 months. They're like, 2 years, 6 years. And then they have that clarity. And then when I go back to it, I'm like, so does waking up override the 6 years of you being stuck? So you're letting an alarm clock hold you back from who you want to be, essentially. And we break it down like to the T of those things. And to say, if you got that 1 hour back to yourself, 7 days, that's 7 more hours for the week. And then just doing all the math. And then they're like, okay. And we just break things down in that way. And again, it all goes back to perspective hopping. They have some clarity, which the whole intent again is to give them their own power back. Everything we need is already within us, but we have all this blockage of negative thoughts, intrusive thoughts, things that came from family. So it's just like being able to stop to breathe and to say, I'm in control. I have the power. What am I going to do to harness this day? And what am I going to do to win the day? Because I have control.
So you've given so many wonderful ideas and suggestions on how someone can start to change their past behavior patterns and essentially evolve or create a new identity for themselves and change their life ultimately. What's a really actionable step someone can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to take that first step towards breaking some of those past behavior patterns?
That's a great question. So, number one, I would get a sheet of paper and write out exactly what version 10.0 of you would look like and feel like, and be as specific as possible. So, an example could be, I see myself living in this city, in this country. I see myself in this career. I open up my closet, there's my favorite suit brand. I see this and this. When I look in the mirror, I see this type of physique. If I look at my relationship, it's going to look like this. I want this specific breed in a dog, like all the details of everything, the home you want to live in, the way your body looks, the way your confidence is. First, starting with that and taking your time. Don't set yourself a time limit, but be as detailed as possible. The reason why is most people, they say, I want success, I want to be rich, I want to be wealthy. And those are all very vague, broad statements. And then you ask them, okay, how much money is success to you? Or how much life experience is quote unquote success to you? And they're like, I don't know, just a couple million, And it's like still up in the air. And they're like, all right, well, what about per month, and then we keep getting into all the details. And it's like, okay, well, your version of success is traveling the world and having freedom. It's not the multiple millions every month or whatever it is, but starting with the details. Be as detailed as possible of what you want, because it's very hard to keep that fire, drive, and discipline if we don't have that mental rush of knowing exactly what we want to the point that you can feel it. Like you get chills thinking about it and you can utilize all your senses. So, step one, grab a sheet of paper and write out exactly how you want to look and feel from the inside out, where you want to live, how you want your lifestyle to be. And then from there, close your eyes and imagine using your senses to be there. If it's you living by a beach, imagine that house, you're walking out. How does the sun feel? What is your favorite morning routine? You're doing yoga or stretching on your back deck, or you're walking to the water, just envisioning all those things and being present for a moment. And then coming back to the right now to say, okay, that's great. I know what I want. I can add more to it. That felt good because I've never been that detailed about exactly what I want. Next up is, what do I want to get rid of? That could be on the other sheet of the paper is these insecurities, the limiting beliefs, the intrusive thoughts. Maybe somebody has a stutter when they get nervous. Maybe they have social anxiety that stems from childhood, whatever it is, but being neutral. The most important part is being neutral. Be excited about the creativity and what you want to create and live and feel, but then be neutral about the other part and then say, okay, now I know what I exactly want to the T, how I look, feel, what I'm doing, who I'm married to, if I'm even married. And then the other side is what I want to get rid of from the inside out, or bad patterns, bad habits. And then taking a moment to really zoom out and say, okay. And then that would be step one, starting with that. The next step would be, how can I own my morning routine? How can I own my morning routine? And choose two things. One for the body, one for the mind. And they both are interconnected. One for the body and one for the mind. Some people hate public gyms. Some people hate training at home. Whatever you enjoy and whatever makes you feel strong and empowered, do that. So now this person has hyper awareness of what they want to create, hyper awareness of what they would like to get rid of, and lots of clarity on, man, I felt amazing in college when I was working out at 6 a.m. and then I would make my protein shake and my smoothie. And they have that rush and they want to get back to that because they felt it before. So it's just like, let's add that back into the pattern. Like, I have proof I felt amazing. So I would first start with those three things. The left section of what you want, the right section on the paper, what you want to get rid of, and then thinking back in time, empowering mornings that you had and identifying, what did you do? Did you work out? Did you just walk? Or did you just sit in silence and not touch any electronics, like whatever it was? But making sure that you do something for the body and the mind with the intent to have power of your morning, so you own it and say, I'm intentional about my day. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm the boss of this thing, and I'm not going to let the world or people or situations push me all over the place. Here's who I am. So flipping that script to get your power back. So those would be the first three steps.
What an empowering mindset to have, controlling your morning and then being ultimately able to better control your day and control the situation no matter what comes up, knowing that you can control your reaction to them and you're a better space to do so. Thank you so much, Derick, for sharing all of your expertise and such valuable insights with us today. I so appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And so if someone's keen to learn more about you, where can they find you?
So they can find me on Instagram. That's my favorite app, is Fit with Derick 2, Fit with DERICK, Fit with Derick and the number 2. And then on any other platforms, it's just my name, Derick Johnson, the same picture on everything. And in terms of coaching, if they want to know more about what that consists of, it will be on the website fitwithderick.com. And so my intent of the website is to show real people with real results. There's pictures and videos. A lot of people Photoshop in the fitness industry, so every client looks the same in the video as they do pictures. So there's that. And then on social media, my intent is to show my morning routine. So I tell my friends and clients that I don't miss. If I don't post, that means I died. So those are only two options, non-negotiable, or I'm not here anymore. So I'm bringing that up because of the discipline and showing that the consistency of the morning routine and what I do, that it's more so you live what you preach. And I truly believe that that's what's rare nowadays. People that are authentic about what they do and not just teaching from a book or theories, but behind the scenes, they've been drinking, eating, doing, et cetera. And they just kind of like show up as that character sometimes. So yeah, so they can find me on social media by my name. And besides that, my whole intent is just to make people think. Whether they relate to me or not, they're just like, all right, he's going to be that one guy that calls me out. He called me out in that video. So nobody else has made me think like this. So that's my whole intent. Make you uncomfortable so you stop wasting your potential.
The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. If you can be that person for someone, then great. And I'll put all those details down in
Oh
the show
yeah,
notes
for
as
sure.
well. So if someone wants to check you out, then they can do that as well. But thank you so much again, Derick. Really appreciate your time today.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. I so enjoy having you here, and I hope you've taken away powerful insights and tools that will support you to achieve your high-level results. Now, before you go apply all of this wisdom in your life, I would be so grateful if you are able to leave us a podcast review on the platform that you're listening to, or share this episode with a friend. Your support means that we can help more self-led, high-performing individuals just like you expand what's possible for them. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, so please go on and shoot me a note on socials and let me know what you think. You can find me on Instagram at MiffGalloway. Now, go ahead and make those dreams a reality, because actually, you can.